Welcome to New York's number two sports show. The Yankees lose 2 of 3 to the Boston Red Sox at Yankee Stadium. Yankee pitching really gets blasted in this series by Boston, a Red Sox team that was coming and struggling, not necessarily offensively, but just in general. And look, Yankees continue mediocre play against the division. Now 8-8 against the AL East. That's been a bit of the thing for the Yankees, as good as the Yankees have generally been in recent years. They have not really fared all that well against the division, a division I might add that's really not particularly great currently. Um, and the thing is, the tone of this episode could have been completely different if the Yankees had just won this game three, which was kind of the route that I thought was going to happen. Maybe not in which the way it happened, but I thought, okay, win based on the pitching matchups, win game one, lose game two, win game three. And Red Sox were able to a lot of homers in this series. And really in each game, like Will Warren pitched very well through like 5 innings, and then just ran out of gas in the sixth. Ryan Yarbrough's magic, kind of goes away. He gets really just consistently beat in game two. And then Rodón, similar to Warren, Rodon was really good through about 4 2/3 innings. And then, the end of the fifth and then the beginning of the sixth, it just, kind of goes off the rails. So not good. Yankees currently have a 4.5 game lead, 5 on the loss side of both the Rays and the Blue Jays. So that lead is diminishing a little bit, still a solid lead. But of course, still a lot of season to go. Yankees dropped to 39-25. And, this is their first home series loss since they lost 2 of 3 to the Tampa Bay Rays, um, which was probably over a month ago or so. It's been a while, maybe about a month or so, honestly. Um, they, of course, lost the 2 of 3 of the Dodgers and followed up with winning 2 of 3 against the Guardians. And now they lose the series to the Red Sox. So may as well jump right on in because I feel like there's a lot of detail in really all three of these games, quite honestly. Um, there's a ton of offense. And so game one works out very well for the Yankees. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. The Red Sox did make it interesting, and it was kind of a sign of things to come for the Red Sox offense. Again, they're coming into this series 30-34, and then the loss after the first game drops them to 30-35. Will Warren gets the win to improve to 4-3, 5 in the third innings, 3 hits, 4 runs, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So the line ends up being kind of ugly. ERA moves up to 5.34, but he really was very good through 5 innings. And in fact, a couple of the runs were inherited runners allowed by Brent Hedrick as well. So I would say more good than bad from Warren. However, like that final line, you look at that in a nutshell, and it's not great. But you have to kind of factor in what the score was. The Yankees, they were up 7-0, 8-1 in this game. For the Red Sox, Walker Buehler, it's been a bit of a disaster for him as a Red Sox. He, of course, closed it out for the Dodgers in the World Series last year in the ninth inning at Yankee Stadium in Game 5. The loss drops him to 4-4. He goes 2 innings, 7 hits, 7 runs, 5 of those earned, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Walker Buehler has been one of the reasons why the Red Sox are where they are this season. As far as the lineup goes, the odd man out of this lineup was Ben Rice. At this point, the lineup kind of looks as it had, but I will talk about the fact that by the time we get to the end of these series, the lineup takes a little bit of a different look and feel to it. But we'll discuss that when we get there. This one was kind of more what you'd see typically with Grisham leading off. That would not be the case. Grisham would actually sit game two, and he would play game three and bat seventh. But as far as this one goes, Yankees get right on the board, and it looked like Buehler was actually going to work out of a little bit of a jam. But Chisholm Jr., who really threw game one, he did sit. He came off the bench in game two. Chisholm did not really do much in 2 and 3, but in this game, he was really the story for me. He ends up with 3 hits and gets 4 RBIs, and it's a 3-run homer His ninth homer of the year to dead center field gives the Yankees a 3-0 lead right there. So that was a good opening punch by the Yankees against Buehler, by Jazz. And then it's a Dominguez single and Anthony Volpe. He gets in on the act with a 2-run homer opposite field, his eighth homer of the year to make it a 5-0 Yankee lead. So a really good start for the Yankees, and they improve upon that in the second inning as Chisholm's at it again with an RBI single. Um, that with two out. In fact, this is why both runs were unearned. There was an error by Marcelo Meyer on a ground ball by Paul Goldschmidt, the batter before that kind of, opened some things up as the inning would have been over. And then eventually with the bases loaded, Anthony Volpe is hit by a pitch. Now, he would initially stay in the game, but then he was removed maybe about an inning or so later, which led to him not starting game two. He would come in as a pinch runner, but he would start game three. So I think luckily, crisis averted there, but Volpe, who's a pretty tough guy, doesn't miss a whole lot of time. And again, the score was what it was, but he clearly was in some pain. Again, I think he seemed a little bit affected in game three, although he had two hits. Like, I think he's going to be all right, but he takes one kind of squarely on that elbow, the left elbow, from Bueller. But it's an RBI, makes it 7-0 Yanks. Um, and Will Warren at this point is doing a great job, and it's a good response. Now, by the way, it's Peraza that replaces Volpe at short, unsurprisingly. But in the fifth, the Red Sox get going a little bit, and it's Marcelo Meyer getting his first career major league home run. Red Sox have a few players either up already in Christian Campbell and Marcelo Meyer, and then Roman Anthony, who's probably not too far behind. Red Sox have some promising prospects, offensively. And Meyer hits his first homer of his career. It's at Yankee Stadium and it makes it 7-1. But the bottom of the fifth, the Yankees score themselves. And this one is off of Brennan Bernardino, who replaced Zach Kelly. And it would be an RBI single by Aaron Judge, who scored, and Austin Wells scores on that to give the Yankees an 8-1 lead. But then in the sixth, it kind of comes undone on Will Warren. It's a leadoff triple for Jaron Duran, walk for Rafael Devers, sac fly Will Yarbrough, a walk for the former Yankee Carlos Narvaez, who we'll talk about more later in the episode, a walk for Abraham Toro, and that basically gets you to the point where Will Warren's taken out of the game. It's 8-2, bases loaded, one out, and Brent Hedrick comes on, and it's in a fairly big situation for Hedrick. It's not, it is a 6-run lead, but it is bases loaded. And Romy Gonzalez greets him, and Gonzalez pinch hitting for Marcelo Meyer with a 2-run single to make it 8-4. And on that play, the runners go to second and third. But Hedrick does a good job of at least stopping the bleeding. Trevor Story strikeout, and then another former Yankee, Rob Refsnyder, as a pinch hitter, strikes out as well. So keeps it at 8-4. Then Paul Goldschmidt homers to the opposite field off of Cooper Criswell. His seventh homer of the year to make it 9-4. Goldschmidt, I don't know if I'm going to say it later. Goldschmidt, he has struggled. His batting average ending the series is now 312. And I was kind of surprised that he didn't sit game three. I kind of thought he would. Instead, they went with Dominguez, and maybe that was in part because Dominguez, of course, had that recent injury, and so maybe that was sort of a planned off day. I don't know. But I think once Giancarlo Stanton comes back, Paul Goldschmidt might lose some playing time. Again, I like him overall for sure. He has been nothing short of really great and was playing over. Look, he was doing things that just weren't realistically, he wasn't going to hold that up. But again, I don't know if I'm going to get back there. So just wanted to get that out the way. But he does homer there, makes it 9-4 Yanks. Yankees had chances to tack on, didn't. And then in the seventh, Yankee killer and the top RBI guy in the American League, and probably all of Major League Baseball, I would think, is Rafael Devers. He hits a 2-run homer. It's off of Hedrick. Devers' 13th homer of the year makes it 9-6. But then from there, the rest Yankee bullpen in this game did a good job. Not so much in game three, because we'll talk about some of these guys again, but here they do. And Fernando Cruz with a couple of strikeouts. And then in the top of the eighth, Loaizaga gives up a leadoff ground double to Abraham Toro. Now, Toro would homer off of Loaizaga in game three, but the next three batters, Loaizaga gets out. So keeps it at 9-6. And then Devin Williams comes on in the ninth and does a good job. There was a hit by pitch. It was basically a walk to Jaron Duran with one out. But around that, gets the job done. He gets Rafi Devers to fly out, and he gets Christian Campbell a strikeout looking to end it. So Devin Williams picks up a seventh save. Probably is going to be forgotten about in the series, but I got to give that credit there. It wasn't perfect, but for him, given it was the Red Sox, I know he had a 3-run lead. Good job on Devin Williams, who you kind of leave this weekend with him being kind of like just in recency because basically everyone fucked up, except a couple of guys we'll talk about. But really, Williams is not a reason for anything that went wrong, as he picks up the save in Game 1. Game 2. And this one on paper, you knew was going to be a problem, but not really for the reasons that it ended up being. Garrett Crochet, the Yankees got to Garrett Crochet. Now he got the win, but it's really because Ryan Yarbrough was bad. He was due for a bad outing, and it happened. His first loss as a Yankee for Yarbrough drops to 3-1, 4 innings, 9 hits, 8 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Just didn't have it. In the beginning, I felt like maybe there was a little bit of bad luck, but by the end of it, overall, he wasn't good enough. Red Sox got to him. And for Garrett Crochet, the win moves into 6-4, 6 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. You're taking it all day long. 5 innings, 5 runs against Crochet in 6 innings is more than you'd expect, but unfortunately, it didn't matter in this one. Anthony Volpe with the hit by pitch would sit in Game 2. Jazz Chisholm Jr. He also wouldn't start. A planned off day for Chisholm. And then there's one more, I believe, and then Grisham. And then Trent Grisham was out as well, and he was due for being sat. What it leads to though is Pablo Reyes making his first start in a while, and it's just him at third base is not what you want. I don't know why he's still on this team. I'm not gonna make a big deal of it because he's a very irrelevant player. And I think that his days in the Yanks, it's not gonna last much longer. You gotta think by the end of the month, like if Stanton comes back soon and there's no further injuries, which of course both things are question marks, but if those two things exist, I'm thinking that Stanton is almost absolutely taking Pablo Reyes' spot, right? There's no real debate there, unless I'm missing something. I don't think I am. That's the spot. So, unfortunate the way it was with really, it was the Volpe injury that basically enabled this to happen because normally they would have just had Peraza play third, but because they didn't feel good about Volpe, that led to Reyes starting because they wanted to stick with the plan of Jazz not starting against the lefty, which makes sense. Although he was hot, but I get it because he was coming off the injury, and Grisham was due to be like he had played for a while straight, and he's been kind of struggling. So kind of unfortunate bit of circumstances there. But the Yankees, a few individuals had some very nice games. Really, really, honestly, it was particularly three. Austin Wells, DJ LeMahieu, and Cody Bellinger each did the job. Really, besides that, not a whole hell of a lot, but let's discuss. Um, Scoreless after 1 inning, which, then the floodgates would open up from there. Second inning, with 2 out, unfortunately. It looked like Yarbrough was back to back innings going to get out of the jam, but Christian Campbell, who was coming in, I believe, struggling, did a nice job in this series. And he gets an RBI single to make it 1-0 Red Sox. But the Yankees, they responded in the second. And the big blow was a 3-run shot with 1 out by Austin Wells, lefty against Garrett Crochet. Wells hits his 10th homer. So as much as Wells, I think there's a lot to be desired as far as the season, the stats from a home run and RBI perspective and OPS really aren't all that bad. And yet it's still, I think because of that low batting average and some of the at-bats don't always look great, but Wells had a nice night. We'll talk about in that bat where he didn't later on, but overall he was good. Makes it 3-1 Yanks. But then in the third, a 5-run inning from the Red Sox. And it's a Rafael Devers hit by pitch that comes back to bite the Yanks in games 2 and 3. Rob Refsnyder with a double. And let me just say it now. Lots of former Yankee contributions. Refsnyder's is minimal, but Refsnyder, Carlos Narvaez in a big way in game 3. Aroldis Chapman gets 2 saves. Greg Weissert does a really nice job in games 2 and 3. Justin Wilson, nothing amazing, but still, like, he was in the mix in a couple of wins. Garrett Whitlock, like, pretty crazy. And a lot of these names, some are much more relevant than others, but that's a pretty, I mean, from a quantity standpoint, I mean, it's about six Yanks, six former Yankees right there, right? Narvaez, Ref Snyder, Whitlock, Weissert, Wilson, Chapman. Um, Pretty crazy. But anyway, um, it appeared again like maybe Yarbrough was going to find his way out of the inning, but he doesn't. And it's an Abraham Toro RBI single to make it 3-2. And then the real big blow, um, and the real big hit of this game, kind of equivalent to the Carlos Narvaez 3-run homer in game three, is the bases clearing double by Trevor Story. It was hit really hard, but it goes off the glove of Pablo Reyes. I wish he could have made the play. It wasn't easy, but a guy like that, like, hey, it goes off your glove. But it was a scorcher by Story. Makes it 5-3 Red Sox. And then Christian Campbell gets an RBI single with 2 out to make it 6-3. So another 2-out hit for Campbell. Uh, and then in the fourth, a 2-run homer, first homer of the year for Romy Gonzalez with 2 outs. So that was tough too, where you could have kept it at 6-3. Yarbrough really puts the exclamation point on a bad night. So it makes it 8-3 Red Sox. But the Yankees do score 2 in the fourth. Within this, James Rowson was ejected by home plate on Bruce Dreckman when Jason Dominguez was kind of getting fucked on some calls. But with first and third, 1 out, it would be Austin Wells with an RBI double to make it 8-4. So 4 RBIs for Wells. And then an RBI granted for Pablo Reyes makes it 8-5. Then Oswald Peraza gets a single, and unfortunately, it didn't score Wells, who was at second. And the reason why it even was a single was because Wells was kind of making it seem like he was going to steal, but then retreated. So I guess it all kind of evens out, but that was kind of unfortunate because you don't see Oswald Peraza necessarily getting those types of hits. But the score remains 8-5 as Paul Goldschmidt grounds out to end the inning. What's a nice job is Yuri De Los Santos. He actually ends up pitching 3 scoreless innings for the Yankees. So De Los Santos, that's his role. He, to me, is at his best when it's a multi-inning role, um, not in high leverage, like not like we saw in the Dodger game, like this, right? It's a 3-run game that they're losing, and in the middle of the game, he comes in and kind of just keeps it at bay. And so, hey, good job by De Los Santos. In a series of the Red Sox were really doing well offensively, he kind of shuts them down a bit there. Um, there was a Bellinger double play in the fifth that maybe prevented, something going there. Brent Weissert strikes out the side in the seventh against the Yanks, replacing Garrett Crochet. Mark Leiter Jr. pitches a nice eighth inning, gets a strike. He strikes out the side. And then the bottom of the eighth, Yankees make it interesting off of Justin Wilson, former Yankee. Ben Rice walk, goes to second on a pass ball. Aaron Judge fly out, moves Rice over to third. Cody Bellinger walk and steal. And then Jason Dominguez strikes out. And the problem with this is, again, you wish that you could pinch hit for Dominguez in this situation where Dominguez is batting righty. It's the flaw that I have with this team. And it happened in game 3 where there was a lane where Justin Wilson came in against where Wells pinch hit for Ascara, and then Rice, like, you don't have that presence off the bench at this point. Maybe when Stan comes back, maybe some things open up, but still, if I'm teams, I'm bringing in lefties to face Yankee, certain lanes of the Yankee lineup. DJ LeMahieu actually comes through with a really big, up the middle 2-run single to make it 8-7, and actually advances to second on a throw by Cedane Rafaela. Volpe pinch runs for LeMahieu, but then Wells strikes out against Wilson. It's one of those things where Wells had a great night against Crochet, big spot opportunity, and he strikes out. So you can't kill Wells, but it's tough. Again, like, I wish that someone else was up in that spot, but I will digress. Ninth inning, a bad job by Ian Hamilton. You're kind of hoping, Aroldis Chapman in a 1-run game. We've seen, sometimes he can get wild. He's really been fantastic as a Red Sox. So, and he looked very good in both outings. But Ian Hamilton, who it looked like maybe he was turning corner, it's just simply been a bad year for Ian Hamilton. And I think that it's a point where his roster spot will be kind of up for grabs. Ian Hamilton is not at a point where his roster spot is safe. Like, of course, there's Yuri De Los Santos. Like, there's other people. There's Brent Hedrick. It's not as if he's necessarily last in the pecking order, but just, I'm saying, generally speaking, if it gets down to a roster crunch, Hamilton could possibly lose a spot. Leadoff forward to Carlos Narvaez. You can't have it. Myers single. Toro single, and then a 2-run single by Trevor Story. So a 5 RBI night for Story. He was, just as the game before, it was really Chisholm. In this game, it was really Story that gets it done. Um, and then the bottom of the ninth, Chapman comes on and strikes out Chisholm Jr. Peraza grounds out, and Goldschmidt grounds out, and the Red Sox win 10-7. So we go to game three. And I'm thinking, okay, game three, this has been the Yankee script. They win game one, lose game two, and almost always, again, the last time they lost game three was that, I'm telling you, it was the Rays series loss about a month ago. That comes to an end. And it's disappointing because Carlos Rodón was on the mound and looked really, really good through 4 2/3. And it ends up being a not so good line. 5 innings, only 3 hits, and that's been, kind of the bread and butter for Rodón is, limiting the hits against, but the home run ball got him a couple of times. He is a 5 runs, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. The loss drops into 8-4. If he had won, I believe he would have been the first pitcher in baseball to 9 wins, but it didn't happen. And then for the Red Sox, Hunter Dobbins wins to improve to 3-1, 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, no walks, and no strikeouts. So no strikeouts in 5 innings for Dobbins. The thing with him is he had a quote before the game that said he would, if the Yankees were the last team that he could sign with, he'd soon retire before that, which obviously got a lot of attention. Kind of a crazy, I know, I'm sure Red Sox fans love it, but a bit of I mean, if that situation actually existed, like that's kind of insane. And I don't think that he would, if he was basically either going to be with the Yankees or out of baseball, I mean, he's definitely going to sign with the Yankees. It's a wild statement to make by Hunter Dobbins. But anyway, he ends up getting the win, right? So that's the frustrating thing too. Like he had no strikeouts, and Judge homers off him immediately, but he gets the win. Yankee lineup: Ascar in for Wells, and Dominguez was out. Again, so a little surprised by that. Like the fact that the way it worked out with Dominguez, who I didn't really mention the fact that Dominguez was batting fifth against Garrett Crochet. Like that was a really bad lineup in game two that somehow scored, what was it, 7 runs on the night. But I am surprised that Goldschmidt wasn't the one that, to me, that would have made sense. What was also interesting was that, again, like I alluded to before, Trent Grisham batted seventh. So, which against a righty, I don't think you had to do it against a righty, but I also don't hate the idea of Judge moving up to the 2 hole. But I also don't necessarily love Goldschmidt batting fourth right now. I don't hate Goldschmidt more in that 5 spot, but so it seems like the Yankee lineup is kind of in a little bit of it's a fluid situation right there with the lineup. Ben Rice kind of stays up top, but again, against a lefty, that wouldn't be the case, obviously. So against the righty, it was just interesting that maybe the idea with Grisham, A, again, he's been scuffling a little bit, and B, maybe they felt as if it gives them a little bit more top to bottom balance, and it gets Judge batting second. And it's amazing that Judge ends up having quite the night, leaves the series with a 396 batting average. The fact that he's still even kind of sniffing around 400 is nuts. 64 games into the season. Crazy. With a 1264 OPS. And now 23 home runs. Cal Raleigh has 26. Cal Raleigh's been unbelievable in the home run department for the Mariners. But let's get into this one. Ben Rice leadoff single, and Carlos Rodón looked very good. That's the shitty thing, is that this seemed like, okay, the Yankees, they're going to get the job done here. Like, Rodon's going to pitch well. He's going to give him maybe 6 or 7, maybe 6 more realistically, because the pitch count was never amazing tonight, but then the Yankees will find a way to piece it together. But Aaron Judge, he gets a 2-run shot on the first pitch off of Dobbins, which was pretty sweet. The fact that he greets Dobbins with just an absolute blast the opposite way to make it 2-0 Yanks. But then the Yankee bats quiet down, and there was a LeMahieu double play in the second inning. But let's just jump to the top of the fifth. Rodón cannot walk Rafaela. Rafaela is one of the least walk players in baseball, and Rodón walks him. And then Christian Campbell, was it a fortunate homer? Sure. Like, it's stage fair on the right field line, but it all counts the same, and it's a 2-run shot for Campbell to make it 2-2. You could feel how big that was. Like, it's like, whoa. Like, it felt like the Yankees should have been up by a lot, and now all of a sudden it's tied. However, what makes it more frustrating on the Rodón part, DJ LeMahieu with an opposite field home run, his second homer of the year, to make it 3-2. But then Rodón gives it right up immediately. Hit by pitch to Devers to start the 6th. Rob refs on a walk, And then Carlos Narvaez with the big blow of the game, his sixth homer of the year, a 3-run chop and get 5-3. Carlos Narvaez made his Yankee debut last season. He was a guy that was in the Yankee organization for, I think, about 9 years. Over the offseason, they traded him to the Red Sox. And I think the Yankees might have gotten back sort of a lotto ticket pitcher prospect who actually might end up being decent, but still, I don't have a problem with necessarily trading Narvaez, but it sucks that it had to be to the Red Sox. And it's somewhat similar to the Luis Torrens, but different. Luis Torrens being traded to the Mets. Now, the Mets are in a different league, right? So that's different. But the Yankees have a lot of catchers. Uh, they are just a team that is able to produce that from that position. And Narvaez is really, really producing offensively and defensively for the Red Sox. And that's not fun to see. But again, that ends Rodon's night. And just a really bad ending. This is the type of stuff that you saw from Rodon a little bit earlier in the year, where, like, I think back to that the one that comes to mind is the Jung Ho Lee game for San Francisco against the Yankees, and there was a couple of more similar where it's that 3-run home run ball that you cannot afford in that spot, and that's exactly what happens. Um, you know, Rodon had been like magnificent going in, but hopefully Rodon can next week against the Red Sox deliver in a tough spot in Fenway Park. So 5-3 Red Sox, and then Fernando Cruz gets into a little bit of trouble. Double to Abraham Toro, single to Trevor Story with one out. And it looks like he's going to get out of it. He strikes out Rafaela, but then he walks Christian Campbell. Again, Christian Campbell was a thorn on the Yankees side, especially with 2 outs. You cannot walk Campbell there. So now it's bases loaded 2 out, and Tim Hill comes on for Jarren Duran. Now, Tim Hill, as a Yankee, batters were 0 for 14. Now, there were walks, because I remember Michael Conforto walked against him. Like, that doesn't include like walks and stuff, but 0 for 14 with the bases loaded. That comes to an end. Jarren Duran, 2-run single. And what sucked about this was the ump on a 1-1 pitch, it was a definite strike. It should have been 1-2 count instead of a 2-1 count. That changes the whole Philly at bat. Hill gives him a good pitch to hit, and Duran deposits it up the middle to make it 7-3. So that hurt. But the Yankees in the 6th were able to get a couple of runs off of Brennan Bernardino, the lefty who has struggled against the Yankees in his career. It eventually becomes a base-loaded situation with 1 out, and Chisholm gets a sac fly to make it 7-4. And then Garrett Whitlock comes on, gives up a single to Volpe, off of Whitlock, actually, but he stayed in the game. And then Trent Grisham, really in a terrible at bat for Grisham. He deserved to strike out. He chased some pitches out of the zone that would have led to a walk. He eventually gets the walk on a check swing, where, quite honestly, I thought he might have went around. But it's fortunate. It's 7-5, and so that leads to DJ LeMahieu. And I don't want to make a big deal about this because a couple of things. LeMahieu homered earlier in the game. It is still the 6th inning. It's not like it's late in the game, but there was a couple of spots in this game where I would have maybe had Jason Dominguez pinch here for LeMahieu in the 6th, and I believe the other spot was in the 8th. And they stuck with LeMahieu again. Like, he had done well enough where that's okay, but he grounds out against Whitlock in a righty-righty matchup, whereas maybe Dominguez does something big there. Loaisiga pitches a good 7th inning, but we'll get back to Loaisiga. In the bottom of the 7th, Justin Wilson gets out Wells and Rice on strikeouts. Again, that's that lefty lane that they can't do anything about. They pinch hit Wells for a Scarra. I don't know that I necessarily would have rushed to have done that, especially since Wells the night before already struck out against Justin Wilson, but it goes to show you how they feel about Wells and Escara. Then a single by Judge, and then a pop out by Bellinger, who represented at the time the tying run. 8th inning comes around, and Loaisiga is in for a 2nd inning, and it does not go well. Abraham Toro blasts a home run, his 4th of the season, off of Loaisiga, and then Trevor Story, it goes back-to-back. This one, more of a Yankee Stadium type shot, his 8th homer of the year. So Loaisiga, back-to-back Sunday night baseball games, allows 2 homers against the Dodgers and 2 homers against the Red Sox. So in the middle of that was some good stuff from Loaisiga, but again, like the numbers, where is he at ERA-wise now? 4.5. Like, again, like, you still hope he's going to be a big piece to this pen, but he's still trying to get his bearings straight. So it's 9-5 at this point. Brent Hedrick would eventually finish out the inning. Bottom of the 8th, Zach Kelly comes on, gets into a little bit of a problem. 2nd and 3rd, 1 out. Greg Weissert comes in, the former Yankee, who's been fantastic as a Red Sox. He was involved in that Alex Verdugo trade, which clearly worked out better for the Red Sox than the Yankees. And it would be Weissert who strikes out Trent Grisham. Again, Grisham's, has at-bats have not been as good lately. And then DJ LeMahieu lines out. So to be fair to him, LeMahieu hit the ball pretty well. 97.7 exit velocity there. Again, that was a spot you could have gone Dominguez. You know, it would have been interesting if Grisham, let's say, walked and it was bases loaded and Dominguez at the tying run. That to me would have been a good test to see what they would have done. Like, whereas here, I kind of knew it would be LeMahieu. Ninth inning we go, and of course, Rafael Devers has to homer because why not against the Yanks? Homers off of Hedrick. He homers off of Hedrick in games 1 and 3. Makes it 10-5 Red Sox there, and then another run would be scored off of Hedrick, an RBI double down the left field line by Abraham Toro to make it 11-5. They actually would have to bring in Ian Hamilton because Hedrick had thrown 36 pitches, and Hamilton finished out the ninth. Bottom of the ninth, Red Sox bring on Robert Stock, who got in a little bit of trouble, gives up a 2-run homer to Aaron Judge. So again, Judge's 23rd homer of the year makes 11-7. Bellinger walk, Goldschmidt strikeout, Chisholm Jr. walk. So it puts into a safe situation for Aroldis Chapman, and he strikes out Anthony Volpe pretty easily. Chapman gets his 11th save. He has a 1.71 ERA. He's been very good for Boston. And the Red Sox go into Yankee Stadium and take 2 of 3. So let's preview the upcoming road trip. 3 against the Royals, 3 against the Yankees. So Royals-Yankees is the second series of the year between these two. The Yankees swept Kansas City Yankee Stadium. Now, at this point, the Royals are 34-32. Tigers looking good in the AL Central, but the Royals are very much right in that thick of it for the American League wildcard race. Again, Yankees beat them in the ALDS last year. So this is a team that is well equipped and could certainly be, a team that is one of those 3 wildcard spots. Game 1 is Max Fried against Noah Cameron. What to make of note here is that they switched Fried and Schmidt. Fried jumps ahead of Schmidt, and I think the reason for that is that it allows Fried to pitch against the Red Sox. I think that's the reason. I don't know for 100% sure, but that's what I would surmise. Because the Red Sox didn't face Fried this first time around, but now they'll get him based on this tweak. And then Noah Cameron for the Royals has actually been good. Very good. Rookie lefty who has a really good ERA. He's not a strikeout guy, but all the other numbers are pretty impressive. So battle of lefties there, Fried and Cameron. Game 2 will be between Clark Schmidt and Chris Bubic. Now, this is a rematch of a matchup from earlier in the year where the Yankees won. Both guys got no decisions in that game. That was actually Clark Schmidt's first start of the season, mid-April against Kansas City. And Bubic, the lefty, he has the best ERA in all of baseball, 1.43. Very impressive. Yankees actually did pretty well against Bubic, that I will say. I'm sure if you look at his game logs, that was probably one of his worser outings. So impressive there, but this is going to be a test for sure. The Yankees did fairly well against Crochet, maybe the same against Bubic, but that one, whereas game 1, you kind of like that matchup, game 2, a little bit trickier. And then it leads you to game 3, which is going to be a matchup between Will Warren and Seth Lugo. Now, the Yankees faced Lugo earlier in the year and did well against him as well. They actually had 4 homers off of Lugo and a win by Carlos Carrasco in that series. So this will be interesting. And then it leads you into a rematch versus the Red Sox. And the Yankees should be a little bit pissed off with them coming in the Yankee Stadium and taking 2 of 3. So this is a situation where, not to jump ahead to the Red Sox series, but given this episode, kind of hoping the Yankees can take 2 of 3 at Kansas City and then 2 of 3 at Boston, but knowing that's going to be a very tough task. That's not going to be easy to do. And so overall, you're kind of hoping 4 and 2 would be great. 3 of 3 is maybe somewhat tolerable, but, again, like that Red Sox series particularly, I think you really want to take 2 of 3 to get back for what just happened this weekend. So again, Yankee pitching gets blasted by the Boston Red Sox. They win game 1, but they lose games 2 and 3. Yankees division struggles or mediocrity kind of continues. And now they will hit the road to take on Kansas City and Boston.